The Catholics of Oz is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit GiveStarQuest.com.
You're listening to episode 152 of The Catholics of Oz. The Catholics of Oz is a show where we discuss faith, culture, and what's been happening from an Aussie perspective. Whether it's synods or science, apostolates and apps, providence or productivity, you can hear it right now on The Catholics of Oz. Hello, I'm Lindsay Sant, and welcome to episode 152. So good to have you with us. I'm joined today by a full team, starting with my Artemis sister, Caroline Knight. We are all about Artemis II at the moment. How are you, Caroline?
Oh, wasn't that amazing? Oh, my gosh, mind blown. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you.
Good. And we'll have a lot more to say about that. And you didn't travel as far as the astronauts did, but you did travel safely back from New Zealand. So did you have a good time?
We did. It's always a good time in New Zealand. It is so relaxing. It's the best place to reconnect with nature. And I did a lot of photography of fungi and because it was just all coming out and connecting with Phil's family again. And it was just, a really lovely time. We had Easter over there. We did our Stations of the Cross and the Sunday Mass at the cathedral there in Wellington. Beautiful community. Lino, they had a big Filipino community over there as well. Oh. That was really cool. They did the music for the Sunday Mass.
Would have been awesome.
I felt just at home. Like, it was really good. Yeah. So, amazing. Yep.
Yeah, between the family, the fungi, the hobbits, the dragons, and everything else, it must have been an amazing experience. Yeah.
It was only 10 days this time, but we pack it in every time we go. So it's really good.
Good one.
Oh, and a lot of beautiful Malaysian food down in Cuba Street. That's what we hang out for the most. It's just, I know, New Zealand, but they have the best food over there.
There you go. Yeah.
Delicious. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. And we're also joined by Lino Saubolle. Lino, how are you?
I'm good, guys. I'm good. Oh, I'm hungry now. Malaysian. And so inspired by Artemis. We were just talking about it before we started. I had to stop because we could have gone a bit further on, but it was so amazing. It's so inspiring. I was telling the guys, I almost had tears.
Yes.
Just thinking that this is, the exploration has started. It can continue, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I can't say any words. We'll have to continue with the podcast because I don't want to get more with it. It's so exciting. So exciting.
We will have a lot more to say about it in the science segment of today's episode. So but we are excited to talk about it, as you can tell. But we'll do that soon. But first of all, if you're new to listening to The Catholics of Oz, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast player. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating wherever you do listen and some positive feedback so that we can hear from you and know who you are and also reach out to new people, which is what we are all about. SQPN also hosts The Catholics of Oz on YouTube. So if you search for SQPN on YouTube and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell to get notifications when new episodes of this show and all of the other great shows on StarQuest are released. Just as a bit of interest now, it'll be a week ago and a bit when this episode comes out, but there was a newsletter that came out from Dom about a listener in Perth who was listening to The Secrets of Stargate, and he'd said he's an atheist and always thought that Stargate, the show, was like this anti-religion because of false gods and all that kind of stuff. And then through listening to The Secrets of Stargate, it actually helped him with his perspective a bit more. So well done to the Secrets of Stargate team. And as we were saying in the Slack channel for the network as well, just an affirmation of the mission of this network and what we're all trying to do with all of our different shows. So well done for that. With that in mind, let's talk about Faith Beyond Borders.
Well, I'm actually feeling rather good about this. I think we've all arrived at a very special place, eh? Oh. Spiritually, ecumenically.
How do you make somebody love you without affecting free will?
Welcome to my world, son. You come up with an answer to that one, you let me know.
Yes, I had to work very hard to pass Latin and theology.
Oh, quite. Those are, of course, the most important things.
Oh, yeah.
I'd sit this one out, Cap.
I don't see how I can.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
There's only one god, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
So I'm going to start this one with I don't know, what do you call it? A warning, a beware, a listener advisory, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to stray into some discussion about war because Pope Leo recently has been talking about war and conflict in the world. In particular, obviously, the war in Iran, which, again, it'll be a week from now when this episode comes out. So it might get better, it might get worse. We're obviously praying for peace in that area. And obviously things that are happening in Lebanon as well. We're praying for that the ceasefire that was called there will only get stronger and that people will be able to return to their homes and all of those things. So we may mention politicians throughout this segment, but we are not being political. So I just want to be really clear from the top that when you listen, we're not sharing a political opinion. We are sharing a Catholic opinion. And it happens to be the opinion of our Pope Leo XIV. So I just want to make that clear from the beginning. If you do want a political opinion about it, find another podcast. But if you want a calm, rational discussion about it that is open to dialogue with any of you who are listening, then this is the place to be. And I just want to say also from the top, we've had people disagree with us on different things that we've talked about before, who have then had the courage to contact us in different ways, either by email or on YouTube or wherever it might be. And really good discussion has come out of that. And I can guarantee you, everyone who has written to this podcast and disagreed with us has only ever been treated with respect and a spirit of brotherly fraternity. So I just want to say that from the top, because I know that sometimes when you mention a politician or you mention a situation going on in the world, straight away people get their backs up and think that we're trying to tell them how to vote, what to do. That is not what we're intending to do, right? No. But obviously, because of what we're talking about, the names of politicians will probably be coming up in our discussion. So with that in mind, what I would like to refer to for today's segment is actually the Rosary for Peace that Pope Leo led on the 11th of April this year, because obviously the situation of the war in Iran and the questionable justification for it, and that's not my words, but these are the words of our church. So Pope Leo, the American bishops, and many other bishops have talked about how the war in Iran doesn't fit the criteria for a just war. And so Pope Leo has called for prayers for peace. And so the rosary that he led, he invited everyone around the world, all Catholics, all people of goodwill around the world, to join him for prayer. For us, it was 2:00 in the morning on a Sunday morning. So I was planning to actually just watch it live, but I just couldn't do it because our little baby decided to have other plans for our sleep schedule. So it was just too hard to stay up. But I did go to Caroline's house the day after. So after Mass, we had lunch and then we watched it together there. And it was a beautiful rosary, I think, the way, just off the top, just quickly, before we look at any of his reflections or anything, just your impressions of the whole thing.
It was just beautiful. It was peaceful, it was calm, it was prayerful. It represented nationalities from all over the world, which was beautiful to see. Yeah, just a really well put together prayer service, beautiful singing as usual, just everything you expect from a service like this led by the Pope.
Yeah, no, and it was a rosary, and he's encouraged us to continue praying the rosary for peace now as well. And he explains this in the reflection that I'll share now. There was a rosary, there was the lighting of candles of peace. And as you said, it was each of the candles were lit by people from different continents all around the world. There was a reflection from a church father. So some of the church fathers from our early church talking about peace and war and so on. And then there was a reflection from Pope Leo at the end, which is what I'd like to read to all of us now. So I'm going to read it and I'll just pause every now and then to discuss it. So this is the reflection that took place after the rosary, not because it also has the words in the show notes. You'll see the link. It has the words that he said beforehand when he was outside talking to the crowds that were gathered, and people can read that for themselves. But here is the reflection that he shared at his Vigil for Peace. Dear brothers and sisters, your prayer is an expression of that faith which, according to the words of Jesus, moves mountains. Thank you for accepting this invitation to gather here at the tomb of St. Peter and in so many other places around the world to pray for peace. War divides. Hope unites. Arrogance tramples upon others. Love lifts up. Idolatry blinds us. The living God enlightens. My dearest friends, all it takes is a little faith, a mere crumb of faith, in order to face this dramatic hour in history together, as humanity and alongside humanity. Prayer is not a refuge in which to hide from our responsibilities. nor an anesthetic to numb the pain provoked by so much injustice. Rather, it is the most selfless, universal, and transformative response to death. We are a people who are already risen. Within each of us, within every human being, the interior teaches peace, urges us towards encounter, and inspires us to make supplication. Let us rise from the rubble. Nothing can confine us to a predetermined fate, not even in this world where there never seem to be enough graves, for people to continue to crucify one another and eliminate life with no regard to justice and mercy. That's already quite a powerful introduction, isn't it? That the idea that it seems to be that he's saying that we do have a choice in this. It's not predetermined that we will always choose violence, but actually every human being has a choice in this hour, in every hour, to choose peace. He started by saying that war divides, but hope unites. Arrogance tramples while love lifts up. There's idolatry which blinds us, and there's God which enlightens us. So there's already that, there's this or there's that. Which one do you want to choose? And there's consequences for both. Any quick impressions just from that introduction, Caroline? I'll throw it to you to start with.
There's never enough graves. Oh my goodness, that's horrible to say, isn't it? Like to have to say something like that.
Yeah.
That really shows the horribleness of war, to say that like so many people killed in wars, and there's always the death surrounded, the death that comes with it. I think that enough, to me, that's what really struck out. I think if anything's going to make you want peace, that statement alone would do it. That just brings it home what the reality of war is in the end. What is it? It's death, and it's depriving people of their lives.
Yeah.
That's otherwise lived. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Lino, any quick reflections there?
Yeah, it's war is just very destructive. He's explained how war is and what it can become and what it is in many times. Even our modern warfare, historical warfare, any kind of warfare, it comes to death. And yeah, won't say too much about that, but yeah, that's just basically what it is. And probably I really explained it very well. Yeah.
No, thank you. That's the inevitable result of war is death. There's nothing else that you can say about it. In fact, here he says in that last line, as you say, Caroline, never enough graves. He says for people to continue to crucify one another and eliminate life. And what's worse is this bit that he adds at the end is with no regard to justice and mercy. So we're talking about the unjust nature of war, which steals away life, which would still be around had a particular war or conflict not started, especially an unjust war, which is even worse than a just war might be necessary for defense because there's no other choice. But an unjust war is a war of choice, right? It was a choice to go to war, which means whoever is choosing to declare war in this kind of way is choosing to eliminate life. And this will always involve civilian life as well. So we saw, for example, the school children, the girls, the 125 plus girls that were killed in a school in Iran, and countless other lives who have died in different parts because of this conflict. So he goes on to say, in the context of the 2003 Iraq war crisis, St. John Paul II, a tireless advocate for peace, said with deep emotion, I belong to that generation that lived through World War II and, thanks be to God, survived it. I have the duty to say to all young people, to those who are younger than I, who have not had this experience, no more war. As Paul VI said during his first visit to the United Nations, we must do everything possible. We know well that peace is not possible at any price, but we all know how great is this responsibility. I make his appeal my own this evening, relevant as it is today. Prayer teaches us how to act. In prayer, our limited human possibilities are joined to the infinite possibilities of God. Thoughts, words, and deeds then break the demonic cycle of evil and are placed at the service of the kingdom of God. A kingdom in which there is no sword, no drone, no vengeance, no trivialization of evil, no unjust profit, but only dignity, understanding, and forgiveness. It is here that we find a bulwark against that delusion of omnipotence that surrounds us and is becoming increasingly unpredictable and aggressive. The balance within the human family has been severely destabilized. Even the holy name of God, the God of life, is being dragged into discourses of death. A world of brothers and sisters with one heavenly Father vanishes, as in a nightmare, giving way to a reality populated by enemies. We are met by threats rather than the invitation to listen and to come together. Brothers and sisters, those who pray are aware of their own limitations. They do not kill or threaten with death. Instead, death enslaves those who have turned their backs on the living God, turning themselves and their own power into a mute, blind and deaf idol, to which they sacrifice every value, demanding that the whole world bend its knee. Every paragraph I read is going to be powerful. I think that's all I can say about it. And just this thought here that this is a kind of idolization, right? That this choice of war is a choice to close our eyes, block up our ears, ignore the call of justice, ignore the call of our living God, and make ourselves the omnipotent one instead. He talked about that delusion of omnipotence that some people have. He doesn't mention this homily, but in recent statements, he's talked about a handful of tyrants who are making the world worse through war and through the decisions that they're making. So, yeah, some quick thoughts about that one, Caroline?
Quick.
Yes, I know. Some thoughts.
I don't even know where to start with this one. I'm just saddened that war was just, that it happened so fast and out of nowhere. And I don't want to get political. I'm not going to. I just think that, this is just my personal opinion. Yes, countries may have threats of being able to attack another country. There may be that underlying threat all the time, but we have to think what's the best way to deal with it. And is it just going in and bombing and just upending people's lives and society and causing so much destruction that's going to take decades to repair and for a society to be able to repair itself again? Or is there a better way? Can there be dialogue? Can there be another way of maybe coming to some agreement so that threats are dampened and maybe put away, and maybe some kind of peace can be agreed to instead of war? And that's just how I see it, because just knowing that people are being, I just think, what if it was happening here? Our society's turned up. We see our relatives killed. We lose our houses. We lose our way of living. We become refugees overnight. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, myself, and I don't think I could condemn people if I was in power to death like that. And say what you want to say about that, but that's how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, and I think, as an extension of that, Pope Leo is saying, because what you made me think of is what he was saying about how this choice for war and death is a choice to ignore God, to close God off, to say, I can do better. Because he was saying that people who pray sincerely become more aware of their limitations and more aware of their desire for peace. And rather than saying, I can do it all without God, they say, I can't do anything without God. I rely on God as the source of my life, of my everything. And that's the transformation. But without that reliance on God, there is no transformation. Even by people who invoke or use the name of God, but use it to justify action, use God as like a prop. It's that blind idolatry that we're talking about there.
And that doesn't just happen on one side of the war. It happens on all sides of the war, because everyone invokes God to help them fight their war, right? So, and we're not pointing to anyone specific here, but yes.
But anyone who invokes an unjust war or chooses to kill or chooses to genocide or whatever it might be, it's exactly that. And it's not about sides. It's about human beings, especially ones in power, who have made tyrannical choices, because it's a complete ignoring of God, of the God, if you read the gospel, or the God that we believe in, and it's the use of that same God to justify terrible choices that God would never approve of us making in the first place. Yeah. Lino, any thoughts? I know we're getting a bit deep here, but anything you want to add?
No, I absolutely understand, guys. Yeah, look, That paragraph is so powerful. There was one that sort of resonates with me is that part in the paragraph. Instead, death enslaves those who have turned their backs on the living God, turning themselves and their own power into a mute, blind, and deaf idol, to which they sacrifice every value, demanding that the whole world bend its knee. Now, when we think of death in our Catholic faith, it is... I'm sorry, guys, I'll bring you this back up.
That's right.
In a sense, we think of death as ending here in the earth, but beginning in a new life with the Lord. They're saying it is in this death as something that is so dramatic for everyone in the world. This is a different description of death. What we know back in the days when we were young, we thought of death as a guy in a big cowl with a big scythe. That's the kind of death, kids. And then this is the other kind of death that is very, very destructive. And we don't want that. We don't want, and like you said, Lindsay, God is not about that kind of death. He's not like that. And
it's premature death, right? It's death again, there are people who would be alive today if the current conflict in Iran hadn't started, if the conflict in Lebanon, if the conflict in Gaza, all those things, if they hadn't been...
All the wars. Any war. World War II, ancient wars, all of the wars, right?
All of it. There'd be people alive today. But I'm focusing in particular on unjust wars. Again, just war is a thing. We never want any war, just or unjust. But unjust war in particular its master is death. God is not the maker of this. Its master is death. I'll keep going because I reckon we could talk about this for hours.
Very big topic.
So Pope Leo goes on to say, enough of the idolatry of self and money, enough of the display of power, enough of war. True strength is shown in serving life. With evangelical simplicity, St. John the 23rd once wrote, the benefits of peace will be felt everywhere, by individuals, by families, by nations, by the whole human race. And echoing the incisive words of Pius XII, he added, nothing is lost by peace. Everything may be lost by war. And that's from the encyclical letter Pacem in Terris.
That makes so much sense. Guys, sorry. Nothing is lost by peace. Everything may be lost by war.
100%.
Oh,
well, peace gives, right? Peace allows...
That's correct. That's correct.
And to grow. Death restricts and takes away. Death takes away what was beautiful that was there and replaces it with nothing, whereas peace encourages beauty to keep going. Let us therefore unite the moral and spiritual strength of the millions and billions of men and women, young and old, who today choose to believe in peace, caring for the wounds and repairing the damage left behind by the madness of war. I receive countless letters from children in areas of conflict. In reading them, one perceives through the lens of innocence all the horror and inhumanity of actions that some adults boast of with pride. Let us listen to the voices of children. Dear brothers and sisters, there are certainly binding responsibilities that fall to the leaders of nations. To them we cry out, stop, it is time for peace. Sit at the table of dialogue and mediation, not at the table where rearmament is planned and deadly actions decided. Yet there is a no less significant responsibility that falls to all of us, men and women from all over the world. We are an immense multitude that rejects war not only in word but also in deed. Prayer calls us to leave behind whatever violence remains in our hearts and in our minds. Let us turn to a kingdom of peace that is built up day by day in our homes, schools, neighborhoods, and civil and religious communities. A kingdom that counters polemics and resignation through friendship and a culture of encounter. Let us believe once again in love, moderation, and good politics. We must form ourselves and get personally involved, each following our own calling. Everyone has a place in the mosaic of peace. Again, there's a lot going on there. So, for example, the idea of he receives letters from children talking about the horrors that, of war that they experience. And while the children are, the way he puts this, while the children are speaking from their innocence about what they're experiencing, some adults boast of these actions with pride. Like, look what we did. We blew this up today. We blew that up today. We're doing this. We're doing that. But there are, let alone innocent civilians, there are children who are affected by these actions as well. And there's no justification of traumatizing or even killing lots of children for the sake of a victory, especially through an unjust war. I'll just move us ahead to the other bit that he was talking about, that everyone has a place in the mosaic of peace. So he said, let's tell our leaders stop. He said, but prayer is not just enough. Earlier he said it's not enough for us to hide behind prayer. We need to pray and then act how God is calling us to act. How can each of us act to promote peace, whether it's through letting go of some of the jealousies and the terrible thoughts and hatreds that we have, or whether it's through doing more. And he obviously means the deeds of, say, for example, writing to or speaking to politicians if you have that access, or speaking to each other and speaking to people that you know, and just being peace through our lives. Our Christian life is a life of peace. He quotes often, blessed are the peacemakers. We are all called to be peacemakers. Yeah, any thoughts on that, Caroline?
Yeah, if we keep peace between ourselves, between our families, between our society, I mean, that goes a long way to preventing wars in the grander scheme, isn't it? In a way, I think we can all play a part in keeping a peaceful society, when we hope, if we can also contact if we have access to people in Parliament and whatever over here, like we have that ability, and any grievances we have, we can bring up with them. And
yeah.
But there's always a promotion of unity in society, especially in a multicultural society like we have here. And I think that's a really heartening thing. It's just a shame that it gets out of hand sometimes when it's right at the top and people have I don't know how to say it, but I just don't want to say anything controversial. But
yeah, I think our politicians and leaders are meant to be the best of us. They get elected, right? People vote for them on the backs of the hopes that they have that these people will lead us, because we do need people to lead our nations and to lead our world. And we do vote for them for that. And then so often they let us down by doing what we see happening here. And so, yeah, that's just what you made me think of. Yeah, Lino, anything before I move? I'll read the rest of it right after this, but any thoughts, Lino?
Yeah, just quickly what Caroline was saying about the politicians. I think both sides of the party should be working together. What annoys me, this is personal, is when our major party, who has won the vote, decide to do something and then got the opposition saying, oh, I believe in them, but this is how we will do it. And I'm thinking, no, don't do that. Work with them, then listen to each other, then work out what we need to do. Don't say, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I've said it before. The majority of the opposition say, oh, we'll do it better. And majority of the time we don't hear what they're going to do because of the media, because they have to edit conversations. Yeah. What I'm getting at is work together. Instead of saying we can do it better than you are, and this is what we're doing, the opposition. Fair enough, because that's the way politics is. But work together and work as a team to help in ending this war and also in saving lives. And that part Lindsay was saying about either receive letters from children in areas of conflict, I'm almost tearing up and thinking, you can imagine our kids like that and hearing bombs and all that jazz.
Anyone who's listening, imagine our own kids.
Anyone listening. Yeah.
Exactly. And kids always look up to adults for protection.
Yeah.
And then when they're betrayed by bombs and by that adults deployed over them and destroyed their houses and families, and of course if they've survived, they can have like lifelong injuries that ruin the rest of their life, and these horrible pain and everything they have to go through. And then sometimes there's like aid is not let through because of adults as well.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. That's heartbreaking.
It is.
That really, really is angering me.
Yeah, look, it's a very touchy comment when it involves the innocent and the people who do not want this war, who don't even need this war. But
nobody needs the war.
No one needs
There's no need for war. Right?
Exactly. Look, I don't want to go in. It was a short one.
We can get, it's so heated. It can get quite heated.
And I think this is why it's good that Pope Leo is being as prophetic as he's being right now.
Exactly.
Insane. And the thing is, like, people have accused him, like, the headlines are maddening at the moment. There's things like, either he's getting political or they're blowing up this. There's a feud between Donald Trump and Pope Leo. I don't think Pope Leo has tried to enter into a feud, as childish as Donald Trump has been with his tweets and with the things that he's been saying, like whatever. Put that maddening stuff aside. Pope Leo, all he's doing is relaying church teaching. How does church teaching apply to the current situation the world finds itself in now? Because no world leaders necessarily, apart from a few, are actually speaking enough against this war.
No.
It takes the courage of the Pope to be the one to
That's
say,
right.
Christ
and
does
good
not,
on him for being brave and speaking out and saying what no one else is going to say. Good on him.
This is not of God, is what he's telling us. This is not of God. And this is not the natural, war is not the natural disposition of human beings. Peace is what we were made for. All right, so I'll read the rest of this and then just get some final thoughts. And I've got one or two things to add afterwards. So he says the following: the rosary, like other ancient forms of prayer, has united us this evening in its steady rhythm built on repetition. Peace gains ground in the same way, word by word, deed by deed, just as a rock is hollowed out drop by drop, or fabric woven stitch by stitch. These are the slow rhythms of life, a sign of God's patience. We must not allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by the pace of a world that does not know what it is chasing. Rather, we must return to serving the rhythm of life, the harmony of creation, and healing its wounds. As Pope Francis taught us, there is also a need for peacemakers, men and women prepared to work boldly and creatively to initiate processes of healing and renewed encounter. There is, indeed, an architecture of peace to which different institutions of society contribute, each according to its own expertise. But there is also an art of peace that involves us. Dear brothers and sisters, let us return home having made a commitment to pray without ceasing and without growing weary, a commitment to a profound conversion of heart. The Church is a great people at the service of reconciliation and peace. She advances without hesitation, even when rejecting the logic of war may lead to misunderstanding and scorn. She proclaims the gospel of peace and instills obedience to God rather than any human authority, especially when the inherent dignity of other human beings is threatened by continuous violations of international law. Throughout the world, it is hoped that every community become a house of peace, where one learns how to diffuse hostility through dialogue, where justice is practiced and forgiveness is cherished. Now more than ever, we must show that peace is not a utopia. Brothers and sisters of every language, people and nation, we are one family that weeps, hopes, and rises again. No more war, a journey with no return. No more war, a vicious cycle of grief and violence. And that's from St. Pope John Paul II, that last quote there. Dear friends, peace be with you all. It is the peace of the risen Christ, the fruit of his sacrifice of love on the cross. For this reason, we raise our prayer to him. I'll just read the prayer and then we'll just some quick thoughts on what I've just shared with you. Lord Jesus, you conquered death without weapons or violence. You shattered its power with the strength of peace. Grant us your peace, as you did to the women filled with doubt on Easter morning, as you did to the disciples who were hiding in fear. Send forth your Spirit, the breath that gives life and reconciles, that turns adversaries and enemies into brothers and sisters. Inspire in us to trust in Mary, your mother, who stood at the foot of your cross with a broken heart, firm in the faith that you would rise again. May the madness of war cease, and the earth be cared for and cultivated by those who still know how to bring forth, protect, and love life. Hear us, Lord of life. Amen. All right. I do have one or two things to add to this, but I'll pause there. Again, there was a lot. Sorry, Caroline. Where are you at with what you just heard?
Oh, I think I'll just sum up what I think with all of it. And it's just that war, conflict causes misery, it causes death, it perpetuates hatred. Peace means everybody can have a life and have it to the full, just like Jesus Christ wanted us to have. And I think, why would you choose hatred and misery when we could have peace and love and joy here on earth? That's all.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, Lino?
Yeah.
Yeah, peace is love. That's what it is, to have peace in your life. Not because of war, but within everything we do. A work, a play? Yeah, play. Yeah. And everything we do in our lives. It's the way that we need to have on earth. Not a lot of peace is happening. And then I know we're going to talk about soon enough, we'll talk about the Artemis mission, but that brought the core of what peace is really meant in our lives. They were just talking about Earth being such a small planet, but they were just saying that is a utopia that we are living in, and that is why. And they weren't just saying it because of the war, not only because of the war, but they were just saying it because in general, straight out general, we live in peace and we need to keep that planet we're living on in peace. And this prayer is very reflective. I could cut and paste this and probably I want everyone just to maybe print it out and just put on your phone and just read that prayer because it is very, very meaningful. I love it. It's cool. Yeah.
I think there's good cause for us to say that prayer every day, isn't there? It's a powerful prayer. And there'll be a link in our show notes for anyone who wants to recite that prayer often, because I think we all will. Yeah. So I think what's also important about the message is that he's telling us not to give up, because we are upset, frustrated, angry, all those things. But he was saying that peace comes about slowly with our patience, and we need our world leaders to have a bit more patience, because as he was saying, just like the drips of water over time hollow out a rock, or the fabric is woven together slowly to make each stitch and whatever. He's saying just that stitch by stitch, that drop by drop, but it requires a collective patience of everyone, and reliance on God and prayer as well. I wanted to just quickly read a statement that was shared by the US Bishops Chairman on doctrinal issues. It's a clarification on just war theory, because there have been some politicians, but particularly in the US, because it's the US's war, okay? So we're not actually combatants in this war. We're feeling the effects of it, but we're not combatants in it. But there have been some politicians who have tried to say, well, this fits with just war theory. Does Pope Leo know what he's talking about? Or Pope Leo needs to stay in his lane, or Pope Leo needs to focus on theology and morality, not on matters of politics and whatever else. So this is what the Bishop James Massa from Washington, in light of the recent public comments regarding the Catholic Church's teaching on war and peace, Bishop James Massa, chairman of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Committee on Doctrine, issued the following statement. For over 1,000 years, the Catholic Church has taught just war theory, and it is that long tradition the Holy Father carefully references in his comments on war. A constant tenet of that 1,000-year tradition is a nation can only legitimately take up the sword in self-defense once all peace efforts have failed. And that's from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, 2308. That is, to be a just war, it must be a defense against another who actively wages war, which is what the Holy Father actually said. He does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war. When Pope Leo speaks as Supreme Pastor of the Universal Church, he is not merely offering opinions on theology. He is preaching the gospel and exercising his ministry as the Vicar of Christ. The consistent teaching of the Church is insistent that all people of goodwill must pray and work towards lasting peace while avoiding the evils and injustices that accompany all wars. So there was a reference to what Pope Leo had said on Palm Sunday, and he'd been criticized. So he'd said the following in his homily on Palm Sunday. He said, "Brothers and sisters, this is our God, Jesus, King of Peace, who rejects war, whom no one can use to justify war. He does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but rejects them, saying," and he's quoting from Isaiah here, "Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood." So what's going on here is Pope Leo is saying that God doesn't hear unjust prayers. You can't actively choose to sin in the worst kind of way and then expect that God is hearing what you're saying and motivating what you're saying. So an example of this that he's referring to, and that he could be referring to, was a prayer by the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. And again, I'm not being political. I am just saying this because this is an example of a prayer that is not a valid prayer that God would not hear for sure. So I could read the whole prayer, but I'm just going to read some quotes from it. There are all kinds of quotes, but he said, "Let every round find its mark against the enemies of righteousness and our great nation. Give them wisdom in every decision. This is the soldiers. Endurance for the trial ahead, unbreakable unity, and overwhelming violence of action against those who deserve no mercy. My question to that prayer would be, who deserves no mercy?
I was about to say no mercy.
We just had Divine Mercy Sunday, calling for the mercy of everyone. For the sake of his sorrowful passion, have mercy on us and on the whole world. That's our prayer. So that kind of fundamentalist prayer, people talk about Christian nationalism, and the idea of Christian nationalism, or any religious nationalism, by the way, so you can replace any religion, is the idea that of using God, or God endorses the actions that you're taking and they're done in the name of God. But Pope Leo has been saying correctly and carefully using Catholic theology that God is not in this. God is not in prayers for violence. God is not in prayers for the death of other human beings. It is just not of God to pray like that and to actively promote it. So I say this again, do not mistake me for making a political statement. I'm making a theological statement and a Catholic statement as well, that we are called to pray for peace. So in contrast to the words of that prayer that you heard, I urge everyone to go back to the prayers of Pope Leo, that prayer that I just read to you, and that is the correct way to pray in a time of war, not to pray for the death of our brothers and sisters, whether they are Muslim or Jewish or Christian or atheist or whatever they might be. We never pray for the death or demise of anyone. We pray for peace always, even in times of war. So that's all I wanted to say about that. So I'll cap that by saying anyone who would like to comment or talk to us about it, please do. Whether you agree or disagree, we love you. And we're not here to speak to you or over you with condescension. It's okay to have a difference of opinion on this, because we are all brothers and sisters. Whether you are Catholic or not who is listening, we would be happy to hear with you. And we are not criticizing you for being different to us in an opinion, but we are happy to talk to you. And all we are doing is affirming what our Pope has said with authority correctly about unjust war, which is what this is. With that in mind, let's move from Earth to somewhere a bit further away. So, Caroline, it's time for us to talk about science.
What a fine day for science.
You have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Can you reverse the polarity?
I'll do my best.
Science, 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 science. Science, 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 science. Yeah, I like science.
One of the great achievements of humanity, Caroline, is going to space and landing on the moon, which is what we are aiming to do in the future. We had this very exciting Artemis II mission, Caroline. Let's go.
All right. So, yes, how could we not speak about the Artemis II mission? Okay. And I want to go through that. But you know what? I thought, let's have a little bit of a history first of how this all kind of began, because I think it's good to have a bit of a background, okay? So before the Artemis, so we know that there was a space shuttle, right? And the space shuttle was in space from 1981 to 2011. But when they retired the space shuttle, NASA decided that they needed a more capable, like super heavy lift type vehicle that could not only escape Earth's gravity, but needs to be able to carry massive payloads required for deep space presence, which is what we're aiming for eventually. And so was the development of the SLS, which is the Space Launch System, which is like, I think over the last little while, we've been watching its development, watching the engine testing and all of that, which has been really cool to see.
Over years, yeah. So, even watching the Artemis I development was amazing too, over many years.
That's it. And before that, I've been following this for a while, and I think all of us have been. It's been really exciting. So you can probably describe the shuttle, the SLS, as a shuttle-derived kind of vehicle, which means it was based on the shuttle before it. So let's go. What is the SLS? So Space Launch System. It's a super heavy lift rocket designed specifically for the Artemis program. And it is currently the most powerful rocket ever successfully flown. And it is designed to take humans to the moon and eventually missions to Mars. So the SLS inherited a few things from the shuttle. So it was the engines. So the core stage of the SLS uses RS-25 engines, which are the same that were flown in the Space Shuttle program. And each SLS has 4 of these engines. And so the difference would be that the shuttle engines were reused, where the SLS, they actually just disposed of after launch. There are solid rocket boosters. So the SLS uses 2 massive boosters derived from shuttle boosters. The shuttle had 4 segments. The SLS has 5 segments, which makes it more powerful, and it gives the SLS significantly more thrust at liftoff. So what's new? So we've got the large orange central tank that looks like the shuttle's tank, but it's actually new. Now, this orange tricks my mind a bit because to me it looks a bit rusty. I don't know if anyone else has that impression. So maybe a different color would be good, but that's just my opinion. So it's taller, more powerful. It holds more liquid hydrogen and oxygen, and it's the rocket's main structural backbone. The flight profile. So the shuttle was a partially reusable space plane system, whereas the SLS is a fully expendable rocket. The shuttle used to land like an airplane, but the SLS has everything except Orion in the Orion spacecraft is discarded. So yes, and as I mentioned before, the SLS is destined for the moon missions like we've seen and future Mars missions. Now, at liftoff, the SLS actually generates 8.8 million pounds of thrust. So this is, do you remember seeing the footage of the Saturn V rocket? So there's 15% more thrust than those. So they were already powerful. This is 15% more powerful. And this is because it allows the Orion spacecraft to be pushed out of Earth's gravity well into the trajectory towards the moon. So I think it's good here to also talk about what makes up the SLS that we've seen, okay? So it was used in Artemis I and also Artemis II that we saw. So if we go from the bottom up, it's a multi-stage vehicle. So meaning parts of it fall away once the fuel is spent, leaving only the very top section to reach the moon. So we have the boosters. So they're located at the sides of the rocket. They are the solid rocket boosters. They provide 75% of the thrust needed to get the rocket off the launch pad, and they burn for about 2 minutes before being jettisoned off into the ocean. Then, as I mentioned, the giant orange tank, the core stage. So it's about 200 feet tall, massive, and this is where the engines are held at the bottom. And so that they power off the space shuttle. Then you've got the upper stage. So once the core stage falls away, the smallest section takes over. For Artemis II, this was the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. So what it did was give the spacecraft a final push called the translunar injection to break Earth's gravity and head towards the moon. Then we have the Orion spacecraft. So this is the only part of the stack designed to return to Earth, which is comprised of 3 main subparts. So you've got the launch abort system. So this is the pointy tower at the very top. It's designed to pull the crew to safety if something goes wrong during a launch, and it's jettisoned once the rocket reaches space. You've got the crew module. This is the cabin. So we saw the vision of the cabin where the 4 astronauts live. The specific capsule for Artemis II was named Integrity by the crew. And I think they named it that because they all held what I heard was they held each other to very high standards to get through the mission. The service module then is actually provided by the European Space Agency, and it sits directly below the capsule. It contains solar panels, air, water, and the main engine for maneuvers into deep space. So that's just basically the breakdown of the SLS.
You forgot to mention the space toilet as well.
Oh, I was going to talk about that later.
I heard something about that.
Hold on, space toilet coming up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a science topic without talking about a space toilet. I'm just saying.
let's look at Artemis 1 because this really paved the way for Artemis 2. It was a very important mission. Before they could launch humans, they really needed to test out the Artemis 1. So this occurred, the first launch of Artemis 1 was in November 2022, and it was a 25-day uncrewed mission. So it was designed as a stress test for the entire machine, and the primary goal was to verify that the Orion spacecraft could survive the harsh environment of deep space and also, most importantly, the heat of a lunar speed re-entry. So that's very important. Now, there were no humans on board, but doesn't mean there was nothing in there. There was a Commander Munican Campos, which is a mannequin. He was equipped with sensors to measure the vibration and acceleration forces that would be felt in the rocket and during everything that was going on. And he had two others accompanying him who were Helga and Zohar, which were two female mannequins made from materials that mimicked the density of human bones, soft tissues and organs, and they were there to measure radiation exposure, specifically focusing on how deep space cosmic rays can affect soft human tissue. And because female bodies are also going into space, there were particular sensitive body parts, so like the breast and the ovarian tissue that really needed to be studied as well.
Yep.
Because and apparently these can be susceptible to radiation in space, so they really needed to study this as well. So those bodies did have sensors on them to detect the radiation in certain, like in parts of the human body, the female human body. Then there were sensors that were embedded with over 5,600 passive sensors and 34 active radiation sensors. And these were strategically placed at locations of vital organs, also such as the lungs, the heart, liver, and uterus. So they called them phantoms, actually. So the two phantoms were part of the MER. It was Matryoshka Astrorad radiation experiment to test the effectiveness of modern shielding. And then Zohar, she wore the Astrorad protective vest, a specialized radiation shield designed to protect vital organs from solar energetic particles, whereas Helga flew without any protection. She was the control subject, so they would see how she reacted without any protection. So what would happen then by comparing the data from the two, the scientists could then determine exactly how much protection Astrorad vest provided and how much radiation a body without the radiation protection would absorb during a trip to the moon and back. And then Artemis also had some other experiments. They deployed some CubeSats, like the kind of small box satellites containing experiments that were released into space, and some of them failed, some of them worked, so that was good. You can look that up. There's heaps of information of those on the internet. It
was very cool.
As well.
Yeah. All the different missions they were trying to do. Yes,
cool.
yeah.
Exactly. But if I went into all of those, this podcast would go forever.
Yeah.
But they were very interesting. Yeah. And then Artemis 1 eventually returned to Earth and splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on December 11, 2022 at 9:40 a.m. So that was pretty cool. I remember watching that as well. And I think we were all hooked and we were like, imagine humans being in that.
And just to interrupt quickly, I remember that there were different launch windows, but they couldn't launch until it was safe, until they were confident that it would actually take off without exploding. But sadly, the only window that they had that worked was at night. So it was a night launch and we didn't get to see it in its full glory. I just wanted to mention that because Artemis 2, we got to see everything, which was amazing. Yeah. Yes. So Caroline.
No, you're right. I do remember that. And you're absolutely right. And we saw it in its full glory, as you mentioned, on April the 1st, 2026. So we actually, we were locked in and watching. It took off from Launch Complex 39B at the Kennedy Space Center at 6:24 p.m. in the evening, but not fast. It was morning, which was great. And I was in New Zealand. I remember I was making Easter figoli with my boys and we had the iPad on and we were watching, and then Phil's family came in and we were all watching as a family. It was really
Speaking of which, I haven't received any Easter figoli yet. I just want to,
Okay. I'll make it soon.
I want the world to know. I'm putting on the podcast and I want the world to know. I'm holding you to account, Caroline.
Well, this time I may be the only person who made figoli in New Zealand, I reckon, this Easter. So I don't know how many Maltese there are in New Zealand. I don't think there are that many. So, yeah, if you're Maltese and you live in New Zealand and you made figoli, please let me know because, we're probably very, in minority. But I can assure you that...
if word got out in New Zealand that you had made figoli, they would have made you Queen of New Zealand when they tasted it. They would have tasted it and said...
Well, I tell you, Phil's family loved it. They had never had it before and they enjoyed it. And I did get the idea that maybe I should open a pastizzi shop down on Cuba Street. I reckon it would be great. But anyway, we digress. So back to Artemis II. Did you know, you probably did because you've heard it a few times, but this mission marked the first time humans have traveled beyond low Earth orbit since the Apollo 17 mission in 1972. So this was a huge thing. Now, it's good to talk about the diversity of the crew. Okay, so we were made up of Reed Wiseman, who was the commander. He's American from Maryland. Victor Glover, an African-American, first person of color to take part in a lunar mission. You had Christina Cook, who was the mission specialist. She was actually the first woman to leave low Earth orbit and travel to the moon. And then Jeremy Hansen, he was the first non-American or Canadian to travel to deep space environment of the moon, which is great. So we had a bit of representation here from a few different, if you fit more people, that would be great. It could only fit 4. So I think good representation in these 4.
And it was good because I was listening to watching some of the daily interviews they had with the astronauts all the way through. I was actually watching with my 8-year-old Alexander, who loved it. But the banter, for example, one guy was Canadian, so they go, we won't try and make too many Canadian jokes, all that kind of stuff. I've got to say as well, I had to keep in my head Victor Glover because I kept wanting to say Danny Glover. And
yes,
I'm getting too old for this spaceship. I just had that in my head. Yeah.
Totally in my head the whole time.
And on that briefly, Victor Glover's statements of faith all the way through were just inspiring. The way that he applied his faith to his journey was bringing tears to my eyes. This guy they were all amazing, don't get me wrong, but just that particular faith perspective that he had really got to my heart. It was incredible.
Yeah, and I think they were the perfect group of people to do this. They really got along well and they loved and respected each other. You could see they were supporting each other, and I think it was just something they will never forget, and I'm sure they're going to be lifelong friends forever now because they went through this, and just seeing their camaraderie and the way they interacted together was just beautiful and a good example of how we should be together
100%.
On this earth. Yes.
Yeah. Showing us how to do it like professionals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they didn't mind that their humanness came out during the mission unapologetically, and I love that. So it was great. So this mission was truly remarkable, largely free of any mishaps. Because what am I going to talk about now?
Yeah, the toilet.
The malfunctioning toilet. Now, if anything,
and that's a long time to wait. It's a long time to wait, 10 days, I'm just saying. Yeah.
The most important thing you want working on the spaceship is the toilet, okay? It was 10 days. I don't know if you can hold on for that long, all right?
Although, hang on.
I don't know how they could.
No, this is true. I'm sure this is true. People correct me if I'm wrong. The first moon mission, the guy who, I forgot his name, whoever stayed in the control module, he didn't go to the bathroom. I don't want to be too explicit, but one of the ways you can go to the bathroom, he didn't go the whole time. He just waited. I will look this up while you're talking and tell you if that's true or not, but I'm sure that was a thing. Yeah, space toilet, go. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So to me, it would have been an absolute disaster.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had a meltdown.
No petrol station to stop at. Yeah.
That. All right. Yeah. So they did very well to survive in space having to use alternative methods, because they had alternative methods, not as pleasant as the lovely space toilet that they did show us. And I thought that is a good toilet for space, okay? But it didn't want to work. It seemed the pipes didn't want to empty because they got too cold and frozen in the thickness of space.
Thickness of space. Yeah, that's sad.
And so they couldn't empty. What they had to do was turn the ship around so it would face the sun, so it would warm up and thaw out the pipes.
Oh, wow.
And be able to empty.
That is...
So that's what they had to do. But I think in the end it didn't really work for most of the time. So we watched so many space things. No one ever mentions the toilet. And Star Trek, Star Wars, like, where do they go? Honestly, this is bringing it to reality for us. Okay, so back to the good stuff, okay? That was just a side. I'm glad they made it through. They managed, okay? But like lessons for Artemis III, I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. All right. And if you're going to Mars, man, you want to back up. Okay?
Definitely. Goodness me. Yes.
Okay. So on April the 6th this year, the crew of Artemis II officially broke the record for the farthest distance humans have traveled from Earth. They reached a peak distance of 756,000 miles, roughly about 400,000 kilometres, which surpassed the record set by Apollo 13 crew in 1970. This journey took them thousands of miles beyond the moon, and it provided an amazing perspective of our home planet that only about 24 other people in history have ever seen. Okay, so let's go through what they did while they were up there. They acted as like human sensors. They provided visual science using cameras. They were also asked for their descriptions at the time they were looking, so they would have their first impressions. And I thought that was a really great thing to do. Apart from just using monitors and scientific equipment, they actually asked the crew for their own opinions and what they were seeing. They named new craters. So the crew identified and suggested names for 2 craters visible while they were on Integrity, and one of them, heartwarmingly, was named Carol in honor of Commander Reed Wiseman's late wife. And what an amazing, beautiful thing to do for him. And it's just so heartwarming.
When he talked about it, it brought tears. Honestly, it was such a beautiful gesture, and he couldn't even speak. Yeah, when it happened, he couldn't do a speech. He had to have someone else do it for him because he had no words. Yeah.
So I just, these guys just beyond amazing. They're beautiful people, not just amazing astronauts, beautiful humans. Okay. So something else amazing they got to see was impact flashes. So they were the first to visually witness and report micrometeorites impacting it and making flashes on the lunar surface in real time. And they were able to provide immediate data to scientists back at Earth about the frequency of the small impacts of the moon. That's cool. I reckon that is super cool. They did some geological surveying, so they used varying illumination of the lunar far side. So they were able to map high contrast features of the Oriental Basin. They identified color variations. So we normally see the moon as grey or white from our perspective, but they were able to see browns and oranges, which is really cool. And so that helps further with geologists understanding the moon's volcanic history. This one was a cool one. So they were able to experience a solar eclipse while in space.
Oh, that's amazing. We have to wait for how many years? Sorry.
Exactly.
We have to wait for good weather in Melbourne too.
Good weather in Melbourne,
Luckily, the weather in space is perfect. So they were able to witness a total solar eclipse from deep space, allowing them to observe the sun's corona without the interference of Earth's atmosphere for about nearly an hour. And they used the same eyeglasses to protect their eyes that were used at the last solar eclipse that happened on Earth. So how cool is that, right? And not to mention all the amazing views that they saw of Earth from the moon, like an Earthrise, all of that kind of thing. they were describing how small Earth was, but how precious Earth was and how precious we all are. That all of these beautiful, profound statements that were being made, I don't remember them off the word by word off the top of my head, but they were just beautiful, profound statements. Oh, where'd my document go? All right, there it is. So that was, I think I could stare at those views forever. I just didn't want my eyes didn't want to turn away from those pictures. They were just gorgeous, stunning.
Yeah. They were given iPhones to take their own photos as well. So there are some iPhone 17 photos of the moon as well. And I just wanted to add very quickly, the idea that Michael Collins or any other astronaut from the Apollo mission held on for 10 days is a myth. It never happened. So I'm glad to both shared it.
I was about to say.
He'd be very sick.
Yeah, especially in space. Okay.
Yeah, so, get that toilet working on the street. Yes. It's just like, great that you built an awesome rocket. Great that it all works.
Yes.
But don't overlook
there are
the
no
toilet.
plumbers.
Okay, so no, there are none. Maybe they need to make a plumber an astronaut. I think that's a good idea. Anyway, so now there were a couple of other missions that were being undertaken, more experiments that were being undertaken that you couldn't see, but they were there. So the astronauts actually wore some wristbands. So there were the Archer and Avatar studies. So the Archer was the Artemis research for crew health and readiness. So the astronauts wore these wristbands to monitor their sleep, their stress levels, their cognitive performance.
Oh, cool.
And so this just helped NASA to understand how working in tight quarters was in the Orion capsule, how it affected their psychological state and how it affected their teamwork. Then the Avatar was a virtual astronaut tissue analog response. So this experiment used organ-on-a-chip technology. So living human bone marrow cells grown from the crew's own blood before launch were housed in devices the size of a thumb drive to see how deep space radiation and microgravity affected them at cellular level. It's all important stuff for the future. Their immune biomarkers were tracked. So how does space flight weaken the immune system? They use special paper booklets to collect saliva samples. And then so researchers can analyze these to see if like dormant viruses, such as those that cause shingles, were reactivated by the stress of the mission.
Wow, okay, yeah.
That's pretty important too to think about it.
Yep.
And then, of course, radiation monitoring, super important. So 6 active sensors were placed throughout the cabin to map radiation hotspots, they called them, to help NASA design better shielding for the longer Artemis III and Artemis IV missions. So there was a lot going on in these 10 days. So now we come to the conclusion. After all that, probably the most important thing, apart from the successful launch, is a successful re-entry. Yeah. And I think we were all at the edge of our seats, grasping tightly, watching the capsule re-enter and just praying that everything goes okay. And thank God it went beautifully, textbook beautifully. And they landed Friday, 10th of April. And the Orion spacecraft carrying the 4-person crew, they performed a parachute-assisted splashdown. Now, that was pretty cool to watch because every time they went down, parachutes would come out and then those parachutes would drop and the next parachutes would come out, but there'd be a drop in the middle. And what a ride that would be, like drop. And then they would be floating gently down to the sea and they splashed down in the Pacific Ocean southwest of San Diego, California. And so their re-entry speed was 23,864 miles per hour, or which is nearly 40,000 kilometers per hour.
Oh, my goodness, that's fast. Yeah. I could get to work in like a hundredth of a second if I can get that fast. So cool.
Or teleport, anyway. And
that is another section we'll be talking about, people.
And then the heat shield performed beautifully. So it endured temperatures of about 5,000 Fahrenheit. or 2,760 degrees Celsius during re-entry. It's hot. It's half as hot as the surface of the sun. And then they were picked up by a recovery vessel called the USS John P. Martha, which is a U.S. Navy amphibious, transport dock ship. So,
and the Navy operations were really cool to watch, by the way. Well done to the US Navy.
They were very, very
There was even there was an interview with some of the sailors preparing, they called it the porch, I think it was, which was the little platform they set up. But even just the way that they were talking about how they'll set it up and all the ropes and all the divers and everything that needs to be done to make it successful. But it was a textbook perfect, because I didn't realize that they were going to get picked up by helicopters. I thought the ship would pick them up. So a very cool coordination of the US Navy in the way that operation went after the landing. It was just as important as the landing itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think once we saw that happening, everybody in the world who was watching took a deep breath, a sigh of relief to know that they were safely home. And we were so proud of those four who endured that.
I was holding my breath for 6 minutes, I think, where there's that moment where they lose communication during the re-entry. That was and I was like, please hear their voices in 6 minutes time. That's the most tense moment, I think, is there. And then hoping that the chutes will open and everything. It's that final one. So I was saying what you were saying. I was gripping onto my couch, watching and hoping for the best for them. Yeah.
Exactly. But in true NASA style, it went perfectly. Yeah. So it's fantastic. Amazing.
I was watching a presentation by Jared Isaacman, who is the current head of NASA. Now, this is the guy, I know we talked about this whenever it happened, but this was the guy who did the first, I think, civilian mission to space. So he picked 3 other people to go with him, and they went up on a SpaceX Dragon capsule and did that. And then he did another mission where he did a spacewalk in a Dragon capsule as well. Like he opened the hatch and he wore a SpaceX, I think a spacesuit, and he was testing it for them and everything. So he's actually had two journeys to space to low Earth orbit as well. But he was talking about what Artemis II has now laid the groundwork for, which is obviously Artemis III is a test now of docking the Orion capsule with the 2 human landing systems. So one is from Blue Origin, which is the Amazon company. So they've built a human lander to go to the moon, and that's going to launch on their New Glenn rocket, which is a really powerful one, which is also a 100% reusable rocket as well. I think there's a New Glenn launch happening soon. It'll be like the 2nd or 3rd, I think, from memory. And then SpaceX's human landing system is basically a Starship, but designed to land on the moon. Mm-hmm. So the next mission is to dock with both of those in space, because that's going to be really important, because in the future, the Orion capsule is going to have to travel to the moon, dock with one of these landers, which I think will already be in orbit, and then land on the moon using these landers. So that's really exciting. And he said that the whole point of this is then to lay a pathway for humans to live on the moon. So there are already missions in between that are being planned to send rovers and robots and all kinds of things to the moon in anticipation of building like habitats and things for humans to then have a permanent presence on the moon. So it's big, ambitious behind the sky kind of stuff, but NASA is the organization to make those dreams become a reality, I'd say anyway, and he's pretty bold in his vision. So hopefully they are able to achieve it.
You've got to have the vision to start with, because if you don't say it, it can't happen. So, and if they stick together, and they do work with other space agencies as well, and like you mentioned, other companies as well, it can all be achieved.
Can be, yep.
So it's very exciting. I am so glad that we are back at the moon. It's just such a great feeling to know that we're doing this again, and I just can't wait to see what the next mission and everything else that happens next from now.
That's it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I was just wondering, if the United had that toilet problem, would they be able to stop by the International Space Station? Are they able to help, or is that not that they have that?
They're way too far away from the space station.
Okay.
The space station is just sitting in Earth's orbit, just going round and round.
Okay. All right.
They've gone.
It's not as easy to get off the flight plan and the flight path. It's not like diverting an aircraft. It's a lot more complicated to
understand.
Yeah.
Yep.
to divert the capsule, like even the speed they're traveling at and everything else.
They're very fast.
Very complicated.
And they move just by like a little thrust here, and it changes the trajectory. They the little thrust here, so that it's not like they have a stick and they can just fly it around.
Not yet.
That'll come
Yeah. Understand.
And not even sure if the Orion capsule has a compatible docking.
I was about to say, I don't think they thought about that side of it. The main mission was to go through the moon and back. It's like, maybe in the future, just in case of these. I'm not, like you said, the poor capsules go so fast. They're going to go right into the space station. You have got to be careful. I understand.
Yeah. If they do any of these things, it's planned years in advance.
Exactly.
Yes. All these mission profiles. Right. Thank you for that, Caroline. That's such a great topic. Very excited about space again, especially with 4 people going to the moon this time round, and hopefully we'll see more of that and it will go successfully. So it's a long episode today, so let's wrap it up here. So thank you for joining us for episode 152 of the Catholics of Oz. Before we go, we would love to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create this show. Today, we would love to thank Susan, Stephen H., Michael A., Charlene B., and Leslie G. Through their generous donations at GiveStarQuest.com, they make it possible for the Catholics of Oz and all of the other great shows on StarQuest to continue. You can join them by visiting GiveStarQuest.com. We'd love to know your thoughts about our topics that we've discussed today. You can send us feedback, and you can also find our show notes at sqpn.com/Oz, spelt OZ. There'll be links to everything we spoke about there. And while you're on the SQPN website, don't forget to sign up to the newsletter to get inspiring messages like the one I just talked about at the start of today's episode, sqpn.com/about/newsletter, and get in touch with us by finding StarQuest socials on Facebook or whatever socials that you use. StarQuest is on just about all of them. We have our own facebook.com/Catholics of Oz, where if you come and talk to us directly there, or you can talk to us on StarQuest Discord, sqpn.com/Discord. Or if you'd like, you can reach us at good old email. It still works, catholicsofOz@sqpn.com. Caroline, thank you so much for being part of today's show.
It was astronomical. It was out of this world. It was amazing. So,
absolutely, it's a great episode, guys. Just a good message, people. Keep peace, keep love, and reach for the stars. And also,
the more peace, the more space.
You want more space? Yeah. Peace.
Drop the mic.
Want more space? Make peace.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Mic drop.
You want Star Trek to be real? More peace. That's it. Yeah.
That's it.
And once again, I'm Lindsay Sant, and thank you so much for joining us for episode 152 of the Catholics of Oz on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy: The Secrets of Television. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/TV. We'd like to thank Patrick McCaffrey of Moonshadow Studios for editing this episode. To have your audio edited professionally and with care, check out more of Patrick's work at moonshadowstudios.biz. That's moonshadowstudios.biz.